Welcome back, everyone, to Reading by Candlelight Book Club at Molly's Cottage. I'm here with Tanya Scott, author of Stillwater, which features in the November crime thriller book box. Welcome, Tanya.
Hello, thanks for having me, Fiona.
Now, readers, if this is your first time meeting Tanya, here's a little background. Tanya Scott is an Australian writer, a doctor, an educator, sharp sense of humour, and a love of life's absurdities. After a varied medical career, shaped by the resilience and humanity of her own patients, she channeled her passion for twisty mysteries into crime writing, as you do. Born on Victoria's west coast, she now lives on the surf coast with her family and pets, and Stillwater is her debut novel. And for listeners who haven't read it yet, Tanya, can you please give us a spoiler-free pitch for Stillwater?
Yeah, sure. So the spoiler-free pitch. So Stillwater is a crime thriller. So it's a book about a young guy called Luke. Now Luke has come back to Melbourne after several years away. He's been running away from a bit of a troubled past, a chaotic father. So he's back in Melbourne and he's studying. But it's not long before he crosses paths with 𝗚𝘚𝘆𝘆𝗦𝗍𝘍, who is a criminal that he worked for when he was a teenager. And then Gus wants him back on the job. And Gus is not the kind of guy who will take no for an answer. And so Luke is pretty soon roped into this hunt for his estranged father, who's gone missing with a bunch of Gus's cash. And meanwhile, Luke's trying to navigate a fledgling kind of relationship with Emma, who's a pretty flamboyant actor. She's a little bit chaotic herself, and he gets pulled into her family dysfunction as well. And he's really trying to hold on tight to, his goals, which is to get through uni and to have a proper job and, a dog and a house and all the things that he thinks signify real life. But really battling a lot of people and events from his past and some secrets that could land him in a ditch if he's not careful.
I
So it's
feel
a, yeah,
I feel like this is the point where we have to all go, poor Luke.
poor Luke. Oh, poor Luke. Yeah, no, no, Luke gives as well as he gets. So yeah.
Yeah, he does. But you do, like my mama's heart. Sometimes I just felt like, poor Luke.
Yeah, he doesn't have a particularly idyllic childhood, so he's had a pretty rough start to life. But I think, and when I was writing this story, it really did start with the character. So, one of the questions I often get asked is, where did all this come from? Like, oh,
Yes.
how did you come up with this idea? And so it really came out of a character study that I wrote. I was doing so during COVID, during the pandemic, like almost everybody, I did a writing course. I think everybody did, didn't they?
I did.
Yeah, and I was very burnt out with clinical work. I was working in one of those big respiratory tents, the COVID tents where you go through to get your
Really?
yeah. So we set one of those up in the car park of the clinic where I worked, and it was just an absolute nightmare. It was literally a nightmare. Like the rules changed every single day. We were a bit of a punching bag for the general public at that point in time because the government would give us rules and we would have to enforce them, and then nobody was happy. So I got quite burnt out, and I had some health problems as well. So I took a step back from the clinical work and did this writing course. And so I started playing around with this character. And really the idea came from what was a conversation I'd had with a patient. And this is a woman who, came in really well presented. She had her little twin set and pearls and, kids in private school and the nails were done. And she was very, lots of aesthetician involved in the face, so she was very well presented. But we started talking and she was telling me about some stuff that was going on in her home life that really we then got into this conversation about how when you scratch the surface of anybody's life, how much is going on and how everyone has wounds and stuff happening and stuff from their past and shame and vulnerabilities. And, so everybody kind of comes with this like grab bag of different things that they've carried with them from childhood. And she was no different. And it was really fascinating to talk to her because on the surface, everyone would see her and think she was almost a bit of an aspirational type of person. And I think that, in creating this character of Luke, it was a little bit the same. It was a little bit like he looks like, he's a student, he's got it all together, he's living by himself, he supports himself, but he's got a lot going on.
Yes, he does. He does. Now, I'm interested. Do you read your Goodreads reviews?
I did at the beginning. I read a few, and I when I read funny the first funny two-star review, I stopped reading because it was funny at that point to get a two-star review, which was something like, I don't like crime fiction.
I didn't read the book. Yeah, I know.
Well, it's pretty clearly labeled, and the cover is it's crime. Like the Australian cover is very Australian crime, and the US cover is very. There's a man with a gun on the cover, you know. So if you don't like crime, why did you read it? I don't know who this person was, but I thought it was hilarious. And at that point, I thought, do you know what? I think I'm going to stop reading reviews now.
It's just that I just feel like you should go back and read them because your average is very, very good.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Oh
good.
my goodness, your average is right up there with all the bestsellers.
Excellent.
So it's very good. And I've heard nothing but great things from readers of this story, most of which have been, I can't believe this is a debut novel, which
Yeah.
goes a long way to explaining why Stillwater was being called the most explosive Australian debut of 2025. What an honor to.
Yeah, I mean it's a lovely thing for them to say, but who says it's the most explosive? I'm part of a debut crew, and I know lots of debut writers, and all of their novels have been fantastic and explosive. So I think, the hyperbole aside, it's funny how explosive is the word because I didn't actually think of it as an explosive kind of book. I thought of it as a book about a person, so when I was writing it, like people often talk about plotting and planning and all that sort of stuff. I didn't know what I was writing. I was writing a book. It was a story about a person and then you get sucked into this, well, where does it sit on the shelf? And then once you start talking to agents and publishers, there's that conversation about, what genre does this really fit into properly? And and the process that happens from there is that you have to make sure it sits firmly on the crime shelf. So it did get a bit more crimey. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I understand that. It's interesting the number of people who say, "Oh, I started writing this book and I didn't know what it was, and now I'm a crime author."
Now, I've become a crime writer because well, it turns out I mean, there's money laundering and drugs and murder and stuff, probably crime, right? So, yes.
Exactly. And the fact that you're in the debut crew, we've had a lot of the debut crew in the book boxes, and they've all been delightful, wonderful authors, all wonderful stories. It must be a great group to belong to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely fantastic. And just the ability to talk to people and say, well, this happened. Is that okay? Is that normal? And how did you do this? And it's such an odd industry. And writing and publishing are two completely separate things. I think like writing is this quite introspective, introverted, and we're all probably I think most writers are introverts and then become this kind of performative extrovert, so you have to perform at some point and do publicity stuff and talk to people. And although that is fun, it's much more fun on a one-to-one for most introverts. But so talking to other writers about how, and authors, debut crew, about how they've managed some of the stuff and managed things like, going into bookshop and saying, hey, I'm an author and can I sign my books? Which is very, very strange the first time you do it. And you expect to be told, who the hell are you? And it
Yes.
turns out booksellers like it.
Booksellers are lovely. Booksellers are the best people
They are
ever.
the best people. Yes, absolutely. And that's been actually, one of the best things about this whole journey. I say that with inverted commas journey.
Yes.
One of the best things about it has been talking to booksellers and, and going in and saying, what are you reading and what do you read? And I had this one time shortly after Stillwater came out, and I went to a bookshop, was talking to one of the booksellers, and I said, what do you read? And she said, I don't really like crime. I'm not really a crime reader. I said, well, that's fine. There's a book over here by my friend who's written a rom-com. Maybe you'd like that one. And she bought it. So
Oh,
win for the debut crew.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I love that.
I,
Authors spruiking for other authors. That's brilliant.
Well, she's not going to really like mine. It doesn't. Oh, it does have a little bit of romance in it, but it's not a rom-com. So
No,
if that's her thing.
definitely not. No, it's definitely not a rom-com. Now, I really liked your protagonist, Luke. He's empathetic, but he's troubled, and let's face it, morally, he's a little challenged. We could say, but his story is one of hope, even though he's trying to outrun his violent past. You made us care for Luke. Oh my goodness. And, it's a story, it's full of tension and twists and suspense. And what drew you to the idea of a character who's seeking peace but just can't escape their own history?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know exactly where that all started. I think, so like I was saying before, it was really that idea of somebody who's hiding things.
Mm.
And the original, so so in Confidence, I don't know how many people are listening to this, but in Confidence, the original scene that I wrote was this really funny, it was almost comedic, where he's a young guy he's got a girlfriend at different love interest, and so this was way back in like draft -10, and he's got a love interest, and they've been in bed and they're having a chat after having a cigarette, metaphorically, and she's going, oh, I really want some adventure in my life, and he's going, love, honey, I don't want any adventure. The last thing I ever want again is adventure. All right. And they break up because she wants to go and do this big road trip and not plan anything. And he's like, no, I'm done. I've had enough adventures for my whole life. I've witnessed murders. I've seen this. I've seen this. And he's obviously not going to tell her all the stuff that he's been through. But that was really where it first started from, was this idea of somebody who, he's only in his 20s, but he's seen so much stuff already. He really just wants to move on and have a normal life and a bit of peace. So yeah, so I don't know what originally drew me to that, but I remember having this fun with this scene of this, this very young, naive woman who thought that that would be fun, and he's like, no, it's not fun.
No. Now, I take it you have no criminal past yourself.
Oh, that's a big assumption to make.
It is, isn't it? I just want to know what kind of research you did into criminal activities and what surprised you the most.
Yes, so I mean I haven't been to prison myself, but I have visited people in jail, which surprises people. I grew up in the country, and the country, so it's a little bit of I guess, a flatter hierarchy in the country. So you grow up with lots of different people, So I think in the city, people are, you're in a suburb and it's a posh suburb, you only know posh people. You're in a rough suburb, all you know is rough people. Whereas in the country, everyone's all mixed in together, So you've got your middle class and your working class, and everyone's all sort of stuffed in together. So I did have a pretty broad exposure to stuff growing up. The some of the research I did was really, really fun. Like, so my browser history, and most crime writers will say this, my browser history is absolutely awful. Like some of the things, what kind of gun would I need? I had to at one point take out things like brand names and references to, make and model of guns and stuff. They were originally in Stillwater, but I took them out because the book was being published in the US, and I just knew someone would pick up on an error. Because, although, when you grow up in the country, you do handle guns, like usually rifles, and usually out on farms shooting rabbits or shooting at kangaroos to get them off the fields, but you wouldn't necessarily want to hit them, but you'd shoot at the rabbits to get rid of them. But anyway, but yeah, so I did take out a lot of that. So I had a lot of research in that. So I watched a lot of YouTube videos of people, field stripping handguns and stuff. One of the most interesting bits of research, though, is looking at things like court reports. So a lot of court reports are public record, so you can read the transcripts from things like murder trials, and they're just fascinating. They're absolutely amazing. And you can read all the things that the police have said, and then what people have said in court and stuff like that. And there was this one fellow in particular that really caught my imagination. He was a guy he was charged with murder. He had murdered someone. He was not a good guy. He went to jail for 25 years or something.
Oh,
But
God.
he'd made his own firearms out of car parts. And
No.
and I just remember thinking, this guy is really clever. He's actually figured out how to make a gun out of car parts. And if he'd perhaps had a different childhood, if he'd had different mentoring, if he'd had if he'd managed to get a psychologist when he was in high school who helped him through stuff, as our lucky Luke does, he would have had a very different trajectory in life, right? Because he was obviously really, really clever and really good with his hands, and yeah, could have been could have designed spaceships, sent people to Mars, but no, instead he's making guns and shooting people. But
I think that that's the thing about the book, is that it has really important themes, trauma and poverty and dysfunctional parenting and drug use. And what themes were important to you as you developed the story with Gus? Oh my goodness. Oh
yes.
my goodness. A terrifying, um, seriously memorable villain. What makes a good villain in your eyes?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. What makes a good villain? I mean, I think a good villain is not one-dimensional, two-dimensional. So I think all villains have a reason for being a villain. Or, well, actually, I counter that. Maybe some of them are just born evil. But I think most villains have they have kind of a driving value. So something that they want from life or that they feel entitled to, I guess, from life. And I think that maybe is Gus. And there's two villains in Stillwater, and it's interesting. So from a writing point of view, so I'm a very much a pantser, right? I call it discovery writing, not pantsing, because pantsing makes me think of underwear. It always makes me go in a funny direction. So I try not to think about pantsing and underwear. I'll think about discovery writing. So I start at the beginning and I start writing and I have an idea and then it goes wherever it goes, right? But you do always have to come back to the outlining and the structuring later. So I always, when I talk about this, I always think, it's not that you choose to be one or the other, it's just what order you're going to do them in. You can either choose to outline first or outline second. And I had to outline second. But anyway, so when I was talking about the villain, so all of the crime novel structure stuff that you learn it's all about protagonist, antagonist, and that's it. How do
Mhm.
you do that if you've got two villains? Like, what happens then? Is one just relegated to subplot and becomes less important? It's like, no, they're actually both really important villains, right? And they both have different reasons for being villains. So, they've come to it from totally different backgrounds. I think, so Gus in particular, he is very much the wanting to be like the emperor of his domain. He wants to rule the world and in more of a metaphorical, Melbourne sense. He wants to rule Melbourne. He wants to run all of the stuff, all of
Yes.
particularly all the finances of the underworld in Melbourne. So,
It's very modern Peaky Blinders, isn't it?
maybe not quite as, yeah, Peaky Blinders is pretty full on. I suppose Stillwater gets a bit full on at times. Yep.
Hey, you're a doctor, but it's a career full of like people and pressure and humanity. And you've certainly brought some of that into your character of Dr. Bowman.
Mm.
How did your background influence your writing, especially when it's a crime thriller?
Yeah, so I think so. Dr. Bowman is a psychologist, and so I've done a lot of work in mental health. So, probably the last 10 years, most of my practice has been in mental health and in counseling.
Mhm.
So Dr. Bowman is this absolutely aspirational character who always knows exactly what to say at the right time. And so for anyone who's ever done any counseling, you know that you often think of the right thing to say like a day later. Your patient's long gone and you're like, oh, this is what I needed. If I just said this, it would have really, helped them to make this insight. And, but Dr. Bowman's really good at it. So, because obviously I had time to create some of those conversations. So, yeah, so definitely, one of the things with working, so I've worked in general practice for, a long time and you just meet so many people. So a little bit like what I said about growing up in the country, you meet lots of people from lots of different walks of life and you have these really intense deep conversations and they tell you things that it's full cone of silence and you just so just the experience of knowing so many things about what humans do behind closed doors and that they possibly wouldn't admit outside of a doctor's room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're privy to a lot of conversations, I bet.
Yeah, and I think the crime writing thing, I mean, I think I'm very much accidentally crime writing. The accidental crime writer, yeah, because I think, a lot of the stuff that I read tends towards the thriller crime,
Oh, yeah. Same.
as, as well as, like, actually, I read across all genres. I love really amazing literary fiction as well. I like reading stuff that has just amazing prose. But often I will have a palate cleanser with something that's a bit lighter or a bit quicker, like a bit of a spy thriller or, don't usually tend to go for romance, but I have actually this year with the Daybooker, I've read more romance than I ever have in my life. And it's been really fun, actually. Really,
Same.
yeah.
Molly choosing like romance to go in the other box. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my goodness, I've never read so many romance novels in my life because I love crime thrillers, but I also, my palate cleanses are historical fiction. So,
Oh, okay. So the other way around. So yeah, I've read a fair bit of historical fiction this year as well.
mhm.
And that's really interesting because you learn stuff about all the different eras. So I think, everything you read, you learn something from. So,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
I reckon reading across genres is the best way because
Yes,
you just, and they, it comes back to needing a really good story. And it's not just, yeah, not just a premise, but an actual story, like with a full
yes.
arc. Because sometimes there's a good premise to something, but then it doesn't go anywhere. And you're like, this was really good at the start and it had a really good setup and a really high concept. And then it just went, oh, but
Yeah,
then, yeah, so you need that really good story. And that goes across genres, that idea.
I agree. And so your writing journey, did it start in COVID?
Oh no, I've been writing forever. Like I've been writing since primary school. Like so I think so I think I first got the bug in primary school and all through high school. So really embarrassing overshare, but nobody's listening, right? So nobody will know. I wrote like fan fiction stuff in high school. There was a couple of friends and we would write, so we read a lot of fantasy at that age, which I think most
Oh,
teenagers do.
yes.
And we wrote like, swords and sorcery fan fiction, self-insert, here's me with my sword fighting the devils, that sort of stuff. And then after high school, studied and worked a lot and only wrote very occasionally. And then I probably started writing again when my kids were small, which was, a while ago now. And but never really thought that anyone would read anything I wrote. Like it was all very private and very much for me. I've got a really massive epic fantasy in the bottom drawer that nobody will ever have to read, don't worry. And I've written a couple of two-thirds of the way through novels before Stillwater.
Wow.
Non-finished. Yeah.
See, all that practice, this is why people
Yeah.
say that Stillwater doesn't read like a debut. Everybody says that it sounds like it's your third or fourth book.
Well, that's good.
No, you have great reviews. You should go read them.
Yeah, okay. I will, because I've been avoiding them because I feel like sometimes reviews are not for authors because there's nothing you can do
Oh,
about it.
yeah.
Like if somebody's
No,
going to say
there's
something in a
nothing.
review, like, oh, it would have been good if you did this. Like, well, too bad, I can't. So
Yeah, but
there's nothing I can do with that
it,
information
it,
now. So
it's kind of
yeah, for
special
readers.
when your average is over four. You can package pat yourself on the
Oh,
back.
okay.
It's really, I mean, that's up there with,
Mm,
Jane Harper, Lee Childs,
good.
Trent Dalton,
Excellent.
that's where your numbers are.
Thank you. Good. I'll have to go and have a look.
You got a blurb from Jane Harper. What an absolute dream endorsement.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Did you see the
Oh,
child's life?
sheer luck, my publisher is fabulous and knows Jane Harper really well. So that's how that happened. I think when they were originally asking for endorsements, Jane was on a deadline and had sort of said, I'll get to it, again to it, and missed the print run. So the endorsement is on it's on Amazon and stuff and on the website, but it's not on the book. So um
Second imprint, it'll be on the book.
and Jane did my Melbourne launch, which was fabulous. So
It's
and she was
lovely.
just so lovely and so generous with her time, and I really appreciated it. It was
Yeah,
fantastic. And she,
she's a really lovely person as well as
yeah,
being a talented writer. She is kindness in a
absolutely. And she'd read really deeply, which was really
oh
great.
yeah.
So she really had done that sort of real deep read of understanding
So
the book
nice.
and the characters, it's really great when you're doing an interview and someone's actually really, really read it and really connected with it. That's
Yeah.
always fun.
I think it's lovely
Mm.
that, that she was that she put in the work, it's
Yeah.
really nice when people put in the work.
Yeah.
Stillwater's a fictional place, but
Mm.
inspired
Yep.
by where you lived or where you live now.
No. So it's not inspired by uh, where I have lived. It's interesting. There's one person who has picked up where it is, and that's my younger brother, and said, "Oh, is that block? Yeah, yeah, yes, that is where it is." Or it's sort of loosely based on yeah. So in the book, in Stillwater, the block of land that's called Stillwater is near Castlemaine. In real life, it's not where it is, but it had to be there because we needed a gold mine. So no spoilers. So I had to put it
But
somewhere where there was really rich gold rush
oh,
history
yes,
that I could
yes,
use.
it
Yeah.
does help, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And is that how you got the name Stillwater? For the
Oh,
title?
no. No, so this book had about 1,000 titles, and I didn't have a good title, and I'd worked through, a bunch of foolish, lame titles. And then one day I was actually driving to work. So I live in Torquay, and I was driving into Geelong, and I drove across the bridge across the Moorabool River at 𝘬𝘐𝘆 to go into West Geelong, and the water was really still, and the reflection of the old bridge and the trees in the water and the sun just coming through. And I thought, oh, Stillwater. And that's where the title came from. It was just this random, full flash. And that's how I got the title. And
Oh,
then,
I
of
love
course,
that.
the thing with titles that you have to go then is go and Google it and just make sure there isn't another book called Stillwater. And of course, there are a couple of books called Stillwater. It's not the first one. And there's also a movie from about 5 or 6 years ago, which had Matt Damon in it, called Stillwater, but it's a totally different story, so it's fine.
I'll have to look at that. I've never heard of that movie.
Mm. It's
Ah,
a place name in the US as well. Stillwater,
oh,
Oklahoma is a place, Mm.
there you go.
which I found out later.
Now, are you writing another book right now? Please say yes.
Yes,
Good.
yes. And I just printed this off today. I don't know if you can see. Oh, can you see book two? No.
No.
No, it's the blurring of the screen. So I just printed it off today. I just printed off the draft. Um, so yes, it has got the end written at the end of it for the first,
Oh,
oh, not the first time. I have completed, but this is the first time I'm actually happy with where it's up to. So
well
yes.
done, you.
Well, yes.
Like
So it's supposed
that.
to be much earlier, but yeah, so
Oh,
it's late.
it
But it's
takes as long
good.
as it takes. A book takes as long as it takes. Some people take, 3 years to write a book. Some people take seven.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of time. I just had a lot of problems. So I think, there is a specific medical condition called second book syndrome.
Yes, there
It's
is.
diagnosable. It has a set of criteria and symptoms that you can get. And I had that. But hopefully I'm on the end of that now. Hopefully I'm nearly cured. We'll see. We'll see what my publisher says.
Whenever I hear an author say that, I remind them that J.P. Pamari's second book, In the Clearing,
Yeah.
was phenomenal.
Oh, excellent. Yes. Good.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like mind-blowing twist.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yep.
sometimes second books are just bigger and better. You,
I think there's a thing that happens which, you learn so much in the process of writing your first book that your standards change. And so, you everything you're doing in the second book you do with this extra editor head on, which doesn't help.
no,
It just gets in the way. It's like, it's a real doubting voice that's in there the whole time. And I think you kind of got to let that go and just go back to basics and
yeah.
think, what's your story and who's your character and what would they actually do in this situation? How would they respond to this situation? And, sometimes it means ditching the plan.
And maybe Tanya, remember that, that you had a phenomenal debut and that people were really impressed.
Well, that's helpful. I'm not sure if that helps very much because one of the things that happened is a lot of people going, oh, when's the next one? When's the next one? When's the next one? And it's like, calm down. This one's just happened.
I wrote a book.
Yeah, calm down. Yeah, it's coming.
Appreciate that for the
Yeah,
next year or 18 months.
18 months, roughly. I think, probably.
And because we always ask, what are you reading at the moment?
So a couple of things because I'm really bad at reading one book at a time. Yes, I think I tend to flick from book to book. So I've just reread for the second time Lily King, Hearts and Lovers. Heart the
Oh,
Lover, Heart the Lover. It's the second time I've read it. The first time I read it on a plane really, really quickly, and I thought I have to read that again. So I've just read that again. And I'm just at the end of The Ledge by Christian White, which
oh,
is
yeah.
fabulous. Good twist.
Very good twist.
Good twist. Yep, like that one. And on the audiobook side, I've been listening to one that Spotify said you'll like this. So I thought, oh, fine. And I was on a plane. I've just got back from a conference, so I was on a plane, and it's Pip Drysdale, The Close-Up,
Oh, yeah, that's excellent.
which is full on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And very different. So, and again, that comes back to, going across different genres. So three very different books, very different pace, very different voice. So particularly looking at, in that thriller genre, looking between Christian White and Pip Drysdale, totally different voice, totally
yeah.
way of writing, way of structuring and setting things up. It's really fascinating. It is hard to turn off your editor head when you're in the middle of doing stuff. So I'm like, could we have reduced that a little bit? Could we have, could we? Yeah. And it's like you have to just relax and be a reader. And that's a hard thing, I think, sometimes to relax and just read for enjoyment again.
Yes, it is. I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's very, and look, and it's not just writers either. My husband my husband is very critical now when he reads books.
Mm.
He's like he wish he could turn it off because he
Yeah.
said it just takes away the enjoyment of just losing yourself in the story. So
Mm.
I think that's good advice. We should just lose ourselves in stories and enjoy them for what they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, and there's so many books, so many debut crew books I've read this year. Too many for me to shout them all out, but they've all been fabulous. I haven't had any, well, I wouldn't say anyway, but haven't had any that I've gone, oh, I'd leave that one. They've all been great.
Australian writing is so like Australian authors are just so fabulous, and we're just so lucky to have so many of them on this podcast and in the book boxes. And guess
Mm.
what? That's time on our interview.
Oh, wow, that was quick. Lovely. I could talk all night.
Thank you all for coming along tonight and watching us live. If you're watching this on YouTube or listening to the podcast, I do hope you enjoyed this episode. Let us know what you think in the Reading by Candlelight Facebook group or on socials. And I'd like to thank our author Tanya Scott for chatting with me and for being Reading by Candlelight's November crime thriller book box author.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me.
You're welcome. And if you haven't read this yet, you will love the dual timeline, the well-developed characters, the fast-paced, and all the twists and turns. Luke is a character every reader will get behind, and I'd be surprised if anyone can read it and not imagine it as a movie or a TV series. It's just that good. And it's one of those books that definitely lives up to its hype. You will not be able to put it down. Wishing everyone happy reading and goodbye until next time at the Reading by Candlelight Book Club.